The certified letter trembled in Lawson Bryant's hands. 3 pages of legal text that could destroy everything he'd built with the woman carrying his child. His Pacific blue eyes scanned the foreign seal, an eagle wrapped around a stag, and his jaw clenched. "They still claim marital rights," Sheila whispered, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face. "Any child I carry belongs to the Dragomir family." He was a billionaire tech CEO who'd conquered Silicon Valley, launched satellites into orbit, and negotiated with world leaders. But standing in that hotel corridor, watching the woman he loved crumble before an ancient contract from a life she'd fled, Lawson Bryant faced his greatest challenge yet. She wasn't just his employee turned lover. She wasn't just the mother of his unborn child. Alexandra Sheila Allerton was Princess Alexandra of Vesperia, a runaway heiress who'd traded diamonds for freedom, only to have her past reach across an ocean to claim what was never theirs to take. Welcome, beloved viewers, to Mr. Roman's Story Vault, where extraordinary lives unfold and love faces its ultimate tests. I'm Mr. Roman, and tonight I bring you a story that will grip your heart and refuse to let go. Before we begin this incredible journey, I need to ask you something important. If you believe in love that fights, in courage that costs everything, and in the power to rewrite your own destiny, please hit that subscribe button right now. Ring the notification bell beside it. Your support means I can continue bringing you these powerful stories that remind us why love is worth fighting for. Every subscription tells me you're here for the journey, and trust me, tonight's story is one you'll never forget. This isn't just a love story. It's a testament to the choices that define us, the past that tries to chain us, and the future we dare to claim. When a medieval contract collides with modern love, when a hidden princess must choose between safety in shadows or freedom in truth, when a powerful man must decide if love is worth more than his carefully built empire, that's when we discover what really matters. So settle in, dear friends. Turn up your volume, silence those distractions, and prepare your heart. Because once you meet Alexandra and Lawson, once you understand what they risked and why they fought, you'll never look at love the same way again. Let's begin where all great stories do, with a secret about to shatter. The morning sun spilled through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the marble floor of St. Olaf's Hall. Young Alexandra stood before her full-length mirror, barely recognizing the formal young woman staring back at her. At 18, her chestnut hair was swept into an elegant updo, her slender frame draped in azure silk that matched the royal colors of Vesperia. A small army of attendants hovered nearby, adjusting every fold to perfection. "Stand straighter, Your Highness," instructed her etiquette coach, tapping Alexandra's shoulder with a wooden pointer. A princess never slouches, especially when meeting her future husband's family. Alexandra obeyed, lifting her chin as her spine stiffened uncomfortably. She had been practicing this posture since childhood, the weight of her family. A's 300-year dynasty resting on her shoulders with each passing year. "Will they like me?" she asked softly, vulnerability breaking through her practiced composure. The etiquette coach's mouth tightened. "It matters not if they like you, Your Highness. What matters is that you represent Vesperia with dignity. The Dragomir alliance brings trade routes, military protection, and renewed influence to your family's crown." Alexandra nodded, swallowing her real questions. Nobody had asked if she liked Prince Victor. Nobody had wondered if she dreamed of something beyond these stone walls and formal dinners. Outside her window, beyond the palace gardens, ordinary citizens of the Northern European Principality walked freely through cobblestone streets. Their laughter drifted upward, carefree and honest. Alexandra pressed her palm against the cool glass, wondering what it felt like to choose one's own path. "Your Highness," called a gentle voice from the doorway. "It's time." Prince Victor Dragomir arrived with the autumn winds, bringing a cold front that seemed to follow him through the grand halls of St. Olaf's. Tall and precisely groomed, with coal-black hair and calculating eyes, he cut an impressive figure among the courtiers. His mouth smiled when protocol demanded, but Alexandra noticed how his gaze remained evaluating, assessing everything like assets on a balance sheet. Their first dinner together proceeded according to diplomatic choreography. Victor spoke of his education at Oxford, his military training, his family's centuries of rule. Alexandra listened attentively, offering practiced responses about cultural appreciation and mutual respect between their nations. As weeks passed, she found herself constantly under his scrutiny. "Your French pronunciation lacks proper Parisian inflection," he noted during a garden stroll. "We must correct that before you're presented at the grand ball. Your curtsy is too shallow for greeting the Archbishop," he instructed after Sunday service. "Practice again until it's perfect. That shade of crimson doesn't complement the Dragomir colors," he commented when she wore her favorite dress. "Please consult the color palette I've provided." Each correction came wrapped in smooth politeness, always delivered with an indulgent smile that never reached his eyes. Alexandra found herself shrinking, becoming smaller with each passing day, folding her true self into hidden corners of her heart. During a state dinner, she laughed genuinely at a diplomat's joke. Victor's hand found hers beneath the table, his grip tightening until her fingers ached. "A princess never laughs so openly," he whispered into her ear, his breath warm but his words ice-cold. "You represent me now." That night, Alexandra sobbed quietly in her chambers, careful not to let the sound carry through the ancient walls. A soft knock interrupted her tears. Patricia, her governess since childhood, slipped into the room without, waiting for permission, a small rebellion they'd shared for years. "Oh, my dear," Patricia sighed, gathering the young princess into her arms. "What's happened?" "I can't be who he wants," Alexandra whispered into her governess's shoulder. "Every day, I lose another piece of myself." Patricia stroked her hair, grey eyes filled with concern. "The Dragomir alliance brings the crown's favor. A little sacrifice now means security later." "Security for whom? For Vesperia? For my parents? What about me?" Alexandra pulled away, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "I feel like a bird being locked in a cage, one golden bar at a time." Patricia's expression softened. "Even caged birds sing, Alexandra. Find your voice within the constraints." But as weeks turned to months, the cage grew smaller. Victor monitored her correspondence, questioned her about conversations with male courtiers, and insisted on approving her daily schedule. Her parents, focused on diplomatic advantages, dismissed her concerns as pre-wedding nerves. The engagement ceremony arrived on midwinter's night. The palace ballroom glowed with 1,000 candles, nobility from 12 countries bearing witness to the historic alliance. Alexandra stood beside Victor in a gown of ivory and gold, her face a perfect mask hiding the storm within. When Victor produced the ring, gasps echoed through the hall. A heavy gold signet encrusted with diamonds in the shape of the Allerton stag, her family's crest, merged with the Dragomir eagle. "With this ring," Victor announced, his voice carrying to every corner, "our houses unite in purpose and destiny." He slid the cold metal onto her finger, sealing their engagement with a formal kiss that felt like a lock clicking shut. The ring weighed heavily, its presence a constant reminder of ownership rather than partnership. Later that evening, as dignitaries danced and celebrated, Alexandra was led to her father's study. Oak-paneled walls and leather-bound books created an atmosphere of solemn authority as she faced her parents and Victor's family. "The marriage contract," her father explained, gesturing to parchments spread across his desk. "Standard diplomatic provisions for both our houses." Alexandra glanced at the document, elaborate calligraphy in formal Latin, pages of legal terms she barely understood. Her heart raced as a quill pen was placed in her hand. "What does this section mean?" she asked, pointing to a densely worded paragraph about marital rights and succession. "Merely traditional language," Victor's father replied dismissively. "Ensuring the continuation of both bloodlines and the proper inheritance of titles." Her mother touched her shoulder. "Our lawyers have reviewed everything, Alexandra. It's perfectly standard for royal unions." With trembling fingers, Alexandra signed her name, trusting her family to protect her interests. She didn't notice Victor's satisfied smile as he took the quill next, nor did she see the knowing glance between his parents. The contract's crucial clause, buried in archaic terminology and legal complexities, would remain hidden from her understanding until it was too late. Spring arrived with wedding preparations intensifying. Alexandra's days filled with endless fittings, protocol lessons, and memorization of Dragomir family history. Each night, exhaustion claimed her before her head touched the pillow. One evening, as Patricia helped unpin her hair, Alexandra caught her own reflection, pale, with shadows beneath her eyes and a flatness that hadn't been there before. "I don't recognize myself anymore," she whispered. Patricia paused, hands still holding hairpins. "What do you mean, child?" "I used to laugh. I used to read poetry by the lake. I used to have opinions." Alexandra turned away from the mirror. "Now, I'm just an echo of what everyone else wants." "Your wedding is in 3 months," Patricia reminded her gently. After that, it gets worse," Alexandra interrupted, her voice suddenly clear. "I'll belong to him completely. I'll live in his country, under his rules. I'll have his children and teach them to be perfect little royals who never question, never dream, never choose." The certainty in her voice startled them both. Patricia set down the hairbrush, considering the young woman she'd raised from childhood. "What would you do," Patricia asked carefully, "if you could choose?" Alexandra looked up, surprise flickering across her features. No one had asked her that question before. "I would—" She hesitated, the thought almost too dangerous to voice. "I would live somewhere nobody knew my title. I'd use my education to help people directly, not just through charity galas. I'd find someone who loved me for my heart, not my bloodline." Patricia nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "Those are brave dreams, Alexandra." "Impossible dreams," the princess corrected, rising to prepare for bed. "Good night, Patricia." But that night, as Alexandra lay awake, Patricia's question echoed. What would she do if she could choose? And slowly, dangerously, another question formed. What if she did choose? The wedding was 6 weeks away when Victor's jealousy erupted publicly. During a diplomatic reception, Alexandra conversed politely with a young diplomat from Spain. Their discussion about literature, her first intellectual conversation in months, brought color to her cheeks and animation to her gestures. Victor appeared beside her, his hand gripping her elbow with bruising force. "You're needed elsewhere," he stated flatly, pulling her away mid-sentence. In a secluded alcove, his facade cracked. "You embarrass me with such obvious flirtation," he hissed, eyes cold with fury. "We were discussing books," Alexandra protested. "Nothing more." "You are mine," Victor replied, fingers tightening around her wrist. "Everything you do reflects on me. Everything you are belongs to me now." The possessiveness in his words chilled her to the bone. That night, alone in her chambers, Alexandra removed the heavy signet ring, placing it on her nightstand as tears flowed freely. A soft knock came at midnight. Patricia entered, carrying a small leather-bound book. "Your brother sent this," she whispered, placing it beside Alexandra. "Read it only when you're alone." The book contained coded messages from her brother, Ingrid. Messages that revealed a shocking truth. Victor's previous engagement had ended mysteriously, the young countess disappearing from public life entirely. Rumors spoke of his temper, of servants who vanished after displeasing him, of his father's iron control over their principality. With each passing night, Alexandra and Patricia whispered together, planning what had once seemed impossible. "You are of gentle blood," Patricia said one evening, clasping Alexandra's hands. "But even lions must find rest. Think carefully. This choice cannot be unmade." Alexandra looked toward her window, where the moon spilled golden light onto the cobblestones below. "What if it's too late to say no?" Patricia kissed her forehead, tears glistening. "Then tomorrow, we write your name on your own terms." The escape required precise timing, absolute secrecy, and courage Alexandra wasn't sure she possessed. Her brother Ingrid arranged for a loyal chauffeur named Ivan to assist, while the captain of their family yacht waited off the coast. On the eve of her departure to join Victor in his capital for final wedding preparations, Alexandra sat by her window for the last time. The weight of centuries of tradition pressed against her chest. The dynasty would survive without her. The alliance would falter. Diplomatic relations might cool, but life would continue. Her life, her real life, could finally begin. When the palace clock struck 3, Alexandra changed into a stolen captain's uniform, tucking her hair beneath a cap. Patricia, dressed as a chambermaid, carried a small trunk containing only essentials. Together they navigated shadowed corridors, hearts pounding with each creaking floorboard. A guard appeared suddenly around a corner. Alexandra froze, but Patricia stepped forward smoothly. "Late shift change," she murmured, keeping her head down. "Captain's orders." The guard nodded sleepily, waving them past. At the service entrance, Ivan waited with a delivery truck. The palace alarm sounded just as they cleared the gates. Someone had discovered her empty bed. Dawn broke as they reached the harbor, mist shrouding their movements as they approached the sleek yacht. Alexandra's brother waited on deck, relief flooding his features. "Get up, sis," he whispered urgently. "Time's short." The engine rumbled to life as Alexandra cast one final glance at St. Olav's Hall, diminishing behind her. She was leaving behind riches and royalty, safety and suffocation, trading a known prison for an uncertain freedom. As the yacht cut through morning waves, Alexandra removed her cap, letting her hair blow free in the ocean breeze. For the first time in years, she took a full breath, feeling her lungs expand without the constriction of expectations. She was no longer Princess Alexandra of Vesperia. Who she would become remained unwritten. But 7 years later, in a Chicago high-rise, fate had other plans. If you've ever felt trapped by others' expectations, if you've ever longed to break free and write your own story, hit that like button. Your support tells me you understand what it means to choose courage over comfort. But Alexandra's journey was just beginning. The princess might have escaped her golden cage, but would her past let her truly fly free? Mornings in Chicago began with coffee, not curtains drawn by silent servants. Alexandra, now known as Sheila Allerton, had chosen this name carefully, taking Allerton from a distant matron in her lineage while keeping her first name as a private link to her past. She preferred Sheila among new friends, a nickname that held no royal weight. 7 years had transformed the runaway princess into a composed, independent woman. Her loft apartment in Midtown featured floor-to-ceiling windows that welcomed sunrise. Light across hardwood floors, a deliberate contrast to the shadowed corridors of St. Olav's Hall. No portraits of stern ancestors hung on these walls. Instead, simple watercolors of city skylines and abstract forms created a space that was entirely her own. Each morning followed the same reassuring routine: black coffee from a ceramic mug, no fine china, news on the radio not delivered by royal messengers, and a brisk walk to work in sensible heels, not ceremonial slippers. She had built this life meticulously, brick by brick, choice by choice. At Bryson Aerospace, where she served as Director of Guest Services, nobody suspected her lineage. Her colleagues knew her as efficient, reserved Sheila, the woman who arranged flawless corporate events and diplomatic meetings without ever drawing attention to herself. The company specialized in sustainable satellites, a field distant enough from European nobility that she felt secure. Its CEO, Lawrence Lawson Bryant, existed in her world as a name on memos and occasional glimpses across conference rooms, a respected figure she had carefully avoided direct interaction with, maintaining the professional distance that had become her shield, until the rooftop garden changed everything. Annual Innovation Gala, read the banner stretched across the greenhouse doorway. Fairy lights twinkled among exotic plants as Chicago's business elite mingled with aerospace engineers and potential investors. Sheila moved through the crowd with practiced ease, champagne tray balanced perfectly as she ensured every guest felt attended to. The greenhouse roof section had been her suggestion, showcasing the company's commitment to environmental technology while offering breathtaking views of the city skyline. Now, as evening settled, the glass panels reflected both stars and the golden glow from within. Sheila navigated between conversations, refilling glasses and directing questions to appropriate executives. Years of royal training served her well in these settings, though she now used those skills by choice rather than obligation. Turning too quickly around a corner, she nearly collided with a man examining the solar panels along the glass ceiling. "Oh, I am so sorry," she exclaimed, champagne sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her flutes. The man turned, steadying her arm with a gentle grip. "No harm done. I'm just checking if the eco-glass is collecting enough sunlight." Sheila looked up, meeting eyes the color of the Pacific at dawn, intelligent, warm, with unexpected depth. She recognized him immediately, Lawson Bryant, the CEO whose vision had transformed a struggling aviation company into an environmental technology leader. "The roof garden is quite stunning," she said, regaining her composure. "Are you enjoying the evening?" He studied her with quiet curiosity. "I'm enjoying it more now. You're in guest services, aren't you? Alexandra Allerton." "Sheila," she corrected automatically, surprised he knew her name at all. "Yes, I coordinate our outreach events. And yet tonight, you're serving champagne, rather than directing others to do so." His observation carried no judgment, only interest. "I believe in understanding every aspect of what I oversee," she replied, echoing a philosophy her brother had taught her long ago. A smile warmed his features, transforming his professional demeanor into something more approachable. A hands-on leader. "I appreciate that philosophy myself." He selected 2 champagne flutes from her tray, lifting one toward her. "Would you join me for a moment? The western view from here is spectacular at sunset." Professional boundaries warned against accepting, but something in his genuine invitation made her hesitate. "I should continue serving the guests." "The guests are well, attended by the catering staff you hired," he countered gently. 5 minutes of sunset won't collapse your carefully arranged evening." The teasing note in his voice surprised a small laugh from her. She set down her tray and accepted the champagne flute. They moved toward the western glass wall where Chicago stretched before them, buildings catching fire in the setting sun. "To Chicago," he said, raising his glass. "To Chicago," she echoed, the city that had given her refuge and reinvention. Their glasses clinked, crystal meeting crystal with a clear, sweet note. That rooftop conversation grew into elevator greetings, which evolved into lunch meetings to discuss event planning. Lawson proved surprisingly easy to talk with, intelligent without arrogance, confident without domination. He listened when she spoke, truly listened, his attention focused completely as if her words mattered. In one lunch meeting, he mentioned his favorite Chinese restaurant, expressing disappointment when it closed. 2 days later, Sheila left a takeout container on his desk from a similar establishment she'd discovered across town. His "thank you" email contained no excessive gratitude, just understanding you remembered. "Thank you for noticing." Those 4 words, "thank you for noticing," struck deeper than she expected. In her previous life, servants anticipated her every need while overlooking her as a person. Here was someone who felt seen by a simple act of attention. Their professional relationship developed natural rhythms. She anticipated his needs for major presentations. He respected her scheduling boundaries. They formed an effective partnership within the corporate structure, maintained by mutual respect, but subtler currents flowed beneath their professional exchanges. His hand lingered when passing documents. Her smile remained a moment longer when he entered rooms. They found reasons to extend meetings, to create projects requiring collaboration. Yet Sheila maintained careful distance. Her past remained locked away, her true identity a secret even as their working relationship deepened into friendship. She had built her security through anonymity. Revealing herself meant risking everything. Autumn painted Chicago in amber and crimson when the boundaries between them finally cracked. Working late on quarterly projections, Sheila headed toward the parking garage elevator, exhaustion weighing her shoulders. Lawson appeared beside her, briefcase in hand. "Long day?" She nodded, too tired for pretense. The elevator arrived with a soft chime, doors sliding open to welcome them into its empty interior. As they descended in silence, Sheila felt her composure slipping, the carefully constructed walls that kept her safe suddenly too heavy to maintain. The elevator stopped, But before she could step out, Lawson gently touched her arm. "Hey," he said quietly, "are you okay?" She turned to face him, and something in his genuine concern broke the final barrier. "No," she whispered, the truth escaping before she could recapture it. "I'm not okay." The parking garage stretched empty around them, late-night fluorescents casting everything in stark contrast. Lawson set down his briefcase, giving her his complete attention. "What's wrong?" he asked simply. Tears filled her eyes unexpectedly. "I'm afraid," she admitted, the words barely audible. "Of what?" "Of everything. Of trusting. Of being found. Of—" She hesitated, then finished, of feeling safe and then losing it all again. Lawson didn't reach for her, didn't offer empty reassurances. Instead, he stood steady, his presence solid as mountain stone. "I don't know what you're running from," he said finally, "but I want you to know something. With me, you're safe. Whatever you're carrying, whatever you're hiding, I'll always have your back." The promise hung between them, offered without demand for explanation or reciprocation. Sheila felt something shift inside her chest, like a key turning in a lock she'd forgotten existed. "I'm sorry," she whispered, brushing away tears. That was too much. He caught her chin gently, lifting it until their eyes met. "No, it wasn't. Never apologize for being honest with me." His gaze held hers with steady intensity. "I care about you, Sheila. More than I usually care about anyone." The confession, so simply stated, left her breathless. Care. Such a small word for such an enormous feeling. "I care about you too," she replied, the words feeling foreign yet true on her tongue. His smile then, warm, relieved, genuine, chased shadows from the concrete garage. Neither moved to close the physical distance between them, yet something profound had changed. A connection formed that night, built on honesty rather than perfection. Spring arrived, bringing cherry blossoms and new beginnings. On a Sunday afternoon, Lawson invited Sheila to meet someone important, his 4-year-old son, Marcus. The product of a brief marriage that ended amicably, Marcus spent weekends with his father. They met at Navy Pier, where carousel music mingled with children's laughter and the scent of caramel corn drifted on lake breezes. Sheila arrived nervous, smoothing her casual dress repeatedly. She had negotiated with diplomats and managed corporate elites, yet the prospect of meeting this small human tied her stomach in knots. Marcus proved to be his father in miniature, sandy hair falling into curious eyes, thoughtful questions punctuated by bursts of imagination. He regarded Sheila solemnly when introduced, then immediately asked if she liked dinosaurs. "I find them fascinating," she answered honestly. "Especially the ones with the long necks. Brachiosaurus," he corrected seriously. "They ate plants." "That's right," she smiled, relieved by his easy acceptance. "What's your favorite?" "T-Rex," he announced, demonstrating with tiny arms transformed into fearsome claws. "Roar!" His unexpected roar startled a genuine laugh from her. Within minutes they were chasing each other around benches, inventing a game involving pretend dinosaur tales and ice cream rewards. Later, as Marcus explored a nearby playground under their watchful eyes, Lawson passed Sheila a napkin to wipe ice cream from her fingers. "Someone likes you," he observed, eyes crinkling with pleasure. "It's mutual," she admitted, watching the boy climb with determined concentration. "He's wonderful. He doesn't warm up to people easily," Lawson said quietly. "His mother and I are careful about who enters his life." The implication hung between them. She wasn't just meeting his son, she was being welcomed into their inner circle. The trust this represented overwhelmed her. As evening approached, Marcus grew tired, leaning against Sheila's side while waiting for their car. Without thinking, she lifted him into her arms, his small head resting trustingly against her shoulder. His weight felt surprisingly right, his breathing soft against her neck. Over the child's head, her eyes met Lawson's. The tenderness in his expression made her heart contract with both joy and fear. This feeling, this connection, was dangerous precisely because it felt so natural, so right. For the first time in 7 years, Sheila allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival, a future with belonging, Summer heat shimmered over Chicago when everything changed again. In Lawson's office, reviewing plans for an international conference, Sheila suddenly felt the room tilt sideways. Nausea rose without warning, forcing her to grip the edge of his desk. "Sheila?" Lawson was instantly beside her, concern etched across his features. "I'm fine," she managed, though her complexion had paled significantly. "Just dizzy for a moment." His hand touched her forehead gently. "You're clammy. Let me drive you home." "No need to fuss," she protested weakly, even as another wave of nausea washed over her. Lawson ignored her objections, gathering her purse and guiding her toward the elevator. In his car, cool air conditioning helped clear her head, but a suspicion had already formed, impossible yet increasingly plausible. At her apartment, he insisted on coming inside, preparing tea while she rested on the sofa. The domesticity of the moment struck her, how naturally he moved through her space. How comfortable his presence felt within her carefully constructed sanctuary. "Lawson," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something." He sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "Anything?" "I think," she swallowed hard, gathering courage. "I think I might be pregnant." The words hung between them, changing everything. Lawson's expression shifted from surprise to wonder to determination in rapid succession. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "No," she admitted, "but I'm late, and this is the third morning I've felt sick." He squeezed her hand. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "Whatever you want to do, whatever you need, I'm here." The next morning, a pink line on a plastic test confirmed her suspicion. Tears streamed down her face as Lawson carefully took in the news, his own eyes suspiciously bright. He drew her into a tight embrace. "We're having a baby," he whispered against her hair, awe evident in his voice. In that moment, cradled in his arms with new life growing between them, Sheila allowed herself to believe in happy endings. She had escaped her golden cage, found love on her own terms, created a family based on choice rather than obligation. But just when happiness seemed within reach, a ghost from her past arrived. Please share if you believe that life offers new beginnings when we're brave enough to claim them. Every share helps our stories reach those who need to hear that the past doesn't define our future, our choices do. And Alexandra's choice was about to face its greatest test. Autumn in Chicago brought crisp evenings perfect for charity galas. The Burlington Museum of Modern Art had transformed its marble grand hall into a wonderland of burgundy drapes and golden chandeliers for the annual children's education benefit. As a major corporate sponsor, Bryson Aerospace commanded a prominent table near the stage, where Lawson sat in. A perfectly tailored tuxedo, his attention focused on Sheila across the table. At 4 months pregnant, Sheila glowed in a dark green wrap dress that elegantly accommodated her small baby bump. She had selected the outfit carefully, professional yet festive, revealing her pregnancy without making it the centerpiece of her appearance. Though not yet publicly announced, their relationship had evolved naturally, within the company, met with quiet approval rather than gossip. Tonight marked their first formal appearance as a couple among Chicago's elite. Sheila had initially hesitated, concerned about drawing attention, but Lawson convinced her that hiding would only fuel speculation. "Besides," he'd added with a warm smile, "I'm proud to have you by my side." Now, as the orchestra played soft classical melodies, Sheila found herself relaxing. Perhaps she could have this life after all, this normal, beautiful existence built on trust rather than titles. Lawson's hand occasionally brushed hers beneath the table, a silent affirmation of their connection. The museum director approached their table, engaging Lawson in conversation about upcoming STEM initiatives. Sheila excused herself gracefully, making her way toward the powder room. In the corridor, a server approached with a silver tray. "Miss Allerton?" the young woman asked politely. "This was left for you at the reception desk." On the tray rested a thick cream envelope, heavy with formal weight. Sheila thanked the server, turning the envelope over curiously. No return address marked its surface, but as her fingers traced the sealed edge, she felt an embossed symbol pressed into the paper. Her heart stopped. There, barely visible in the dim corridor light, was the merged crest she'd hoped never to see again, the Dragomir eagle entwined with the Allerton stag. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal, sliding out thick vellum pages. The letterhead bore the official stamp of the Vesperian royal court, dated just days earlier. The document was written in formal diplomatic language, addressed to Her Royal Highness, Princess Alexandra Dragomir of Vesperia. The corridor walls seemed to close in around her as she scanned the text, legal terms swimming before her eyes. Phrases jumped out like accusations, unfulfilled contractual obligations, binding, engagement agreement, dynastic succession rights, genetic lineage claims. One paragraph stopped her breath entirely. As per Article 14, Section 3 of the Royal Marriage Contract, signed and sealed on December 12, 2018, any child conceived by Princess Alexandra Dragomir shall be recognized as rightful Dragomir lineage regardless of circumstances, and shall be subject to royal custody claims under the Hereditary Preservation Clause. Sheila pressed her back against the wall, the paper shaking violently in her hands. Her past had found her. Worse, it threatened her child. Sheila? Lawson's voice came from the end of the corridor, concern evident in his tone. Is everything all right? You've been gone. He stopped short when he saw her face, instantly crossing the distance between them. What's happened? She couldn't speak, could only hand him the letter, her eyes wide with terror. Lawson scanned the document, his expression darkening with each line. We need to leave, he said quietly, his arm encircling her protectively. Now. The drive back to Lawson's penthouse passed in suffocating silence. Sheila stared out the window, watching Chicago's familiar skyline blur through tears. 7 years of careful anonymity, of rebuilding her identity, shattered by a single envelope. Inside his spacious living room, with its wall of windows overlooking Lake Michigan, Lawson poured her a glass of water while she sat motionless on the leather sofa. The letter lay on the coffee table between them, its presence poisoning the air. Talk to me, Lawson said finally, his voice gentle but firm. I need to understand what we're dealing with. Sheila's hands twisted in her lap. I should have told you everything from the beginning. Tell me now, he replied simply. And so she did. Words spilled out like water through broken dam walls. Her royal birth, the arranged engagement. Victor's controlling behavior, the midnight escape that had brought her to America. With each revelation, she waited for Lawson's expression to change, for judgment or betrayal to cloud his eyes. Instead, he listened with complete attention, asking clarifying questions, but never interrupting her flow. When she finally fell silent, emotionally exhausted, he moved to sit beside her on the sofa. The contract, he said, lifting the letter carefully. This clause about children, did you know about it when you signed? She shook her head miserably. It was in Latin legal terminology. I trusted my family's lawyers to protect my interests. I was young and afraid and... Her voice broke. So naive. Lawson's jaw tightened. And now Victor and the Dragomir family are claiming our child belongs to them? Yes, she whispered. The Hereditary Preservation Clause was originally designed centuries ago to protect royal bloodlines if a princess was widowed while pregnant. But here, they're twisting it to claim any child I conceive, regardless of circumstances. How did they find you? He asked, the practical question bringing her back from the edge of panic. I don't know, she admitted. I've been so careful, changed my name, avoided cameras, kept off social media completely. Lawson's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. The company announcement, he realized. Last month's press release about the Singapore expansion. You were in the background of the executive team photo. Recognition dawned in her eyes. And industry publications picked it up. Someone recognized you, he concluded, or was actively looking. Silence fell between them as the implications settled. Sheila placed protective hands over her small baby bump, fear constricting her throat. What will happen now? She asked, voice small. Lawson set the letter down decisively. Nothing is going to happen to our baby, he stated, the certainty in his voice unwavering. This contract may be legally binding in Vesperia, but we're in America. Different laws apply here. You don't understand, Sheila replied, shaking her head. The Dragomirs have diplomatic influence across Europe. They'll petition for international recognition of the contract. They could file for extradition, claim I stole royal property when I fled. They could freeze my assets, invalidate my passport. Stop, Lawson interrupted gently, taking her hands in his. We need legal counsel before we catastrophize. I have connections, international attorneys who specialize in complex jurisdictional issues. You'd do that? After learning I've lied to you about everything. His expression softened. You didn't lie about everything, Sheila. You protected yourself from a dangerous situation. The woman I know, her kindness, her intelligence, her courage, that's all real. Your past doesn't change who you are to me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was so afraid you'd see me differently. I do see you differently, he admitted, wiping a tear from her face. I see you as even braver than I thought, and I'm even more determined to protect our family. For the first time since receiving the letter, Sheila felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. Dawn found them still awake, surrounded by legal reference books and international treaty documents. Lawson had called in favors, connecting with attorneys across 3 time zones, while Sheila compiled everything she remembered about Vesperian royal law. The key problem, Lawson explained, scrolling through an email from his contact at an international law firm, is that you signed the contract voluntarily, even if you didn't understand all its implications. That makes challenging its validity difficult. Sheila nodded glumly. And Vesperia is recognized by the UN and most major nations. Their royal contracts have legal standing in international courts. But, Lawson continued, a determined gleam in his eye, the contract was never consummated. You fled before the marriage. That's a potential angle. They'll argue the engagement was binding regardless, Sheila countered, legal terms from her royal education surfacing in her memory. And the clause specifically mentions any child conceived by me, not just within marriage. Lawson ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Then we find another approach. The contract predates your American citizenship. We could argue us laws supersede. My citizenship isn't final, she interrupted quietly. I'm still in the naturalization process. My green card is legitimate, but he absorbed this new complication. Then we accelerate the process. I have contacts in immigration who might... Lawson, she said gently, stopping his flow of solutions. I appreciate everything you're doing, but I need to ask, are you sure you want to fight this battle? It will be public, messy. Your company, your reputation, Marcus, everything will be affected. His expression turned serious. Let me be clear about something. I'm not just fighting for you or for our baby. I'm fighting for us, the family we're building together. That matters more than any reputation or business concern. She studied his face, searching for hesitation or doubt. Finding none, she nodded slowly. Then we need to be strategic. The Dragomirs will expect me to run again. It's what I did before. What are you suggesting? We confront this head-on, but on our terms. We need neutral ground, international legal expertise, and time to prepare our case before they can file claims in American courts. Lawson's eyes lit with understanding. Switzerland, Geneva, she agreed. Home to international courts and treaty organizations. Victor wouldn't expect me to go there. It's too close to Europe, too risky in his mind. It gives us the element of surprise, Lawson mused, already reaching for his phone. I can have the company jet ready by tonight. Sheila placed her hand over his, stopping him mid-dial. This isn't your battle alone. I need to contribute to the fight. What do you have in mind? She took a deep breath. The signet ring. I still have it. The one Victor gave me with the merged family crests. It's evidence of the engagement, but also proof of my identity. We might need it to establish my standing to challenge the contract. Where is it? In my apartment, hidden in a cedarwood box in my closet. I couldn't bring myself to sell it or throw it away. Lawson nodded. We'll get it before we leave. Anything else? Sheila hesitated, then voiced the thought that had been growing since they began planning. If we do this, if we fight openly, my identity becomes public. Everyone will know I'm not just Sheila Allerton. "And you're worried how people will react?" he asked gently. "I'm worried about you," she corrected. "Your business partners, your board members, your son's mother. They might not appreciate discovering you, re-involved with a foreign princess who lied about her identity and is being pursued by European royalty." Lawson laughed softly, the sound unexpected in their tense situation. "Sheila, do you realize what you're saying? You're concerned about my reputation while facing a crisis that threatens our child. That alone tells me everything about your character." He took her hands in his. "Let people talk. Let them speculate. What matters is protecting our family. Besides," he added with a hint of his usual confidence, "I suspect my board will be rather impressed I managed to attract royalty." Despite everything, a small smile tugged at her lips. "You're impossible. I'm optimistic," he corrected, "and determined. Now, let's pack what we need and get that ring. We have a flight to catch." 12 hours later, they stood in Sheila's apartment, gathering essential documents and clothing. The cedarwood box sat open on her bed, the heavy gold signet ring with its diamond-encrusted crest catching the afternoon light. Sheila lifted it cautiously, as if it might burn her fingers. "I never thought I'd wear this again." "You don't have to," Lawson assured her. "We just need it as evidence." She slipped it onto her finger, where it sat cold and heavy, a physical reminder of the past she couldn't escape. "It feels like putting on chains." Lawson gently took her hand, the ring glinting between them. "Then we'll break those chains. Together." A notification chimed on his phone. "The car is waiting downstairs. Are you ready?" Sheila looked around her apartment, the life she had built independently, the safety she had constructed so carefully. Now she was leaving it behind, not running from her past but turning to face it. "I'm ready," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. They took only what they needed: passports, medical records, legal documents, and clothes for a week. Everything else could be replaced or sent for later. What mattered now was speed and discretion. In the private terminal at O'Hare International Airport, Lawson's company jet waited on the tarmac, its engines already warming. Night had fallen, casting the world in protective shadows as they made their way across the runway. At the foot of the boarding stairs, Sheila paused, one hand cradling her stomach protectively. "I'm scared," she admitted. Lawson stood beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "I know, but remember what you told me about the night you escaped St. Olav's Hall. You were terrified then too, but you still found the courage to choose freedom. This is different," she said softly. "Then, I was only risking myself, and now you're fighting for someone else," he replied, covering her hand with his own. "That makes you even stronger." The pilot appeared at the top of the stairs. "Mr. Bryant, we're cleared for takeoff whenever you're ready." Lawson looked to Sheila, waiting for her decision. Drawing a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders, a gesture that would have made Patricia proud, and nodded once. "Let's go," she said, taking the first step upward. Together, they boarded the plane, leaving behind Chicago's familiar skyline for the unknown challenges ahead. As the jet accelerated down the runway, lifting into the night sky, Sheila watched the city lights diminish below them. Not an escape this time, but a strategic retreat to prepare for battle. Lawson reached across to hold her hand as they climbed through clouds toward the Atlantic crossing. Ahead lay Geneva, international courts, and legal battles that would determine their future. Behind them, the letter that had shattered their peace, and the life Sheila had carefully constructed. In the Swiss Alps, they would discover if love could truly conquer law. Night stretched across the Atlantic as Bryson Aerospace's private jet cut. Through clouds, its cabin lights dimmed to accommodate weary passengers. Sheila reclined in her leather seat, watching moonlight dance across the wing outside her window. Across from her, Lawson spoke quietly with their legal team via satellite call, his voice a low, determined rumble. "Yes, we need precedents involving international marriage contracts," he instructed. "Focus on cases where medieval clauses conflicted with modern parental rights. And I want everything about Vesperian royal law that exists in English." When he disconnected, silence filled the cabin. Sheila turned from the window, finding his eyes already on her. "You should rest," he said gently. "The flight's another 4 hours." "My mind won't quiet," she admitted, one hand resting protectively over her growing baby bump. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Victor claiming our child." Lawson moved to sit beside her, taking her hand in his. "That won't happen." "How can you be so sure?" "They have centuries of legal tradition behind them, diplomatic connections, across Europe, and a signed contract with my name on it. And we have something stronger," he replied, his voice steady. "Truth, justice, and resources. They don't expect you to possess." She leaned against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his unwavering confidence. "I never thought I'd return to Europe, even to neutral ground. It feels like stepping back into a nightmare." "This time you're not alone," he reminded her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "This time you're walking in with allies, not running out with secrets." The flight attendant approached with a tray of herbal tea. As Sheila accepted a steaming cup, she noticed the woman's curious glance at the heavy signet ring now. Adorning her right hand, the Allerton stag and Dragomir eagle, visible even in the cabin's dim lighting. "Thank you," Sheila murmured, suddenly conscious of how quickly her identity would become evident once they landed. No more anonymity, no more hiding. When they were alone again, Lawson opened his laptop, turning the screen toward her. "While you were resting earlier, I reviewed what we know about the contract. Our lawyers found something interesting." On screen appeared a digital scan of an ancient document, its edges yellowed with age. "This is the original template for royal marriage contracts in Vesperia, dated 1738. The hereditary preservation clause appears here." He pointed to a paragraph. "Of formal Latin, but with a crucial difference from your contract." Sheila leaned closer, her years of classical education allowing her to translate the archaic text. "It says, 'Any child conceived within the bounds of formal betrothal shall be recognized as legitimate royal issue.'" "But my contract—" "Your contract removed the phrase, 'within the bounds of formal betrothal,'" Lawson finished, "making it apply to any child you conceive, ever. That's not traditional, it's an intentional modification." Hope flickered in her chest. "So they altered a historical clause to trap me." "Exactly. And that gives us grounds to challenge its validity. Customary law depends on historical consistency. If they changed it specifically for your contract, then it's not customary law," she concluded, a spark of the legal education she'd received as a princess reigniting. "It's a modern amendment disguised as tradition." Lawson smiled, pride evident in his expression. "Precisely. Our first angle of attack." As the jet soared over the mid-Atlantic, they huddled together, formulating strategies against an enemy who believed they were already defeated. For the first time since receiving the letter, Sheila felt not just fear, but determination. Geneva welcomed them, with snow-capped Alps gleaming in morning sunshine, Lake Geneva sparkling like scattered diamonds. Their chalet, nestled in a discreet neighborhood away from the main diplomatic quarter, offered both privacy and proximity to the international courts. Within hours of landing, their legal team assembled in the chalet's wood-paneled study, 3 attorneys, specializing in international family law, diplomatic treaties, and historical contract analysis. Maps of Vesperia covered one wall, timelines of legal precedents another. "The situation is complex but not hopeless," began Elise Bonneau, a silver-haired French attorney with 30 years' experience in royal legal disputes. "We've identified 3 potential vulnerabilities in their claim." She laid out documents across the mahogany table. "First, as Mr. Bryant noted, the altered clause deviates from historical precedent, weakening its standing in customary law. Second, your flight could be legally framed as political asylum, not contract breach, given Prince Victor's documented controlling behavior. And third, most promising, you never completed the marriage ritual." "But it's an engagement contract, not a marriage contract," Sheila pointed out. "True, but engagement contracts traditionally terminated, if not followed by marriage within a reasonable time frame. 7 years certainly qualifies." Elise tapped another document. "Furthermore, Vesperian law requires royal marriages to receive formal blessing from their patriarch. Without that blessing, even the engagement terms could be considered suspended. For hours, they dissected legal strategies, building their defense layer by layer. Lawson remained by Sheila's side throughout, absorbing complex legal arguments, asking incisive questions, and providing unwavering support when historical references to her royal duties threatened to overwhelm her. As evening approached, the legal team departed with assignments, promising updates by morning. Sheila stood at the chalet window, watching alpenglow paint distant mountains in rose and gold. "We're making progress," Lawson said, joining her. "They're confident we can build a strong case." She nodded, exhaustion evident in the slope of her shoulders. "I should feel relieved." "But you don't." "I keep waiting for Victor to appear," she confessed, "to somehow find us here, to assert his claim in person." Lawson gently turned her to face him. "Even if he did, he would find you changed. You're not that frightened princess anymore. You're Sheila Allerton and Alexandra Dragomir, a woman strong enough to build a new life and brave enough to fight for it." His faith in her strength brought tears to her eyes. "I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear," he reminded her. "It's action in the presence of fear. And you, my love, have shown nothing but courage since the day we met." That night, however, courage faltered in dreams. Sheila woke screaming, tangled in Swiss cotton sheets, her body drenched in cold sweat. In her nightmare, she stood in St. Olav's grand hall while Victor lifted a faceless infant from her arms, palace, guards restraining her as she fought desperately to reclaim her child. Lawson was there instantly, gathering her trembling form against his chest, murmuring reassurances until her breathing steadied. It was just a dream, he promised. Just a dream. But both knew the fear had roots in potential reality. Each night followed the same pattern, legal strategy sessions by day, nightmares by night. Lawson never left her side, even when business demanded his attention elsewhere. He conducted Bryson Aerospace affairs via video conferences, delegated authority to trusted executives, and prioritized their battle above all else. His devotion humbled her. One morning, after a particularly difficult night, she found him asleep at the study table, surrounded by legal texts, his hand still holding a pen. He had been researching Vesperian constitutional history until dawn, searching for precedents they could use. Sheila gently woke him with a cup of coffee. "You can't keep this up," she said softly. "Your company needs you." "You need me more," he replied simply, accepting the coffee with a tired smile. "And our child needs us both." As days passed, the signet ring became central to their strategy. Initially worn as a reminder of what they fought against, it transformed into their most compelling evidence. "The ring proves the engagement existed," Elise explained during a strategy session. "But more importantly, it proves your identity. We can establish that Alexandra Dragomir and Sheila Allerton are the same person without requiring you to submit to Vesperian authority." Lawson studied the heavy gold band with its diamond-encrusted crest. "How does that help our case?" "It gives us standing in international court," another attorney clarified. "She can challenge the contract as Alexandra, while maintaining her legal status as Sheila. Essentially, we acknowledge the past connection while arguing it has been legally severed." They photographed the ring from every angle, documenting the unique crest combination that could only have been created for the specific royal engagement. What once represented Sheila's captivity now served as a key to her freedom. 2 weeks into their Geneva residence, a breakthrough arrived. Their research team discovered a precedent from 1962, a Vesperian countess who fled an arranged marriage, established citizenship in Canada, and successfully fought royal claims on her children. The International Court ruled that parental rights superseded historical royal contracts, Elise announced triumphantly. "This directly applies to our situation." That evening, to celebrate this development, Lawson suggested a walk along Lake Geneva's shore. Snow had fallen overnight, transforming the landscape into a winter wonderland. Bundled against the cold, they strolled arm in arm, their breath forming clouds in the crisp air. "It's beautiful here," Sheila observed, watching sunlight sparkle across frozen edges of the lake. "Peaceful, different from your royal palace?" Lawson asked, curious about the life she'd left behind. "Completely. St. Olaf's Hall was all formality and tradition, beautiful but cold. This feels—" She searched for the right word. Real. They reached a secluded viewpoint where the Alps reflected perfectly in the lake's still surface. Lawson guided her to a cleared bench, brushing away remaining snowflakes before they sat. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone suddenly serious, "about what happens after we win this case." "You're that confident we'll win?" she asked, smiling at his certainty. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "And afterward, we return to Chicago, welcome our baby, and build our life together." But there's something missing from that plan. Before she could question him further, Lawson slid from the bench to one knee in the snow before her. From his coat pocket, he produced a small velvet box. "Sheila Allerton, Alexandra Dragomir, whichever name you choose, whatever title you claim or reject. I love you completely." He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. "Marry me, not because of contracts or politics or even our baby. Marry me because I want to spend my life making you as happy as you've made me." Tears froze on her cheeks in the winter air. "But my past, all this complication, is part of who you are," he finished. "And I love who you are, all of you, past and present." He removed the ring from its box. Inside the band, she glimpsed an engraving. "My heart, my home." "Yes," she breathed, joy breaking through weeks of fear. 1,000 times yes. Lawson slipped the engagement ring onto her left hand, opposite the signet ring on her right. The contrast between them couldn't have been more profound, one representing obligation, the other choice, one a burden of history, the other a promise of future. As they walked back to the chalet, planning their return to Chicago with renewed purpose, Sheila felt a weight lifting. They had built a strong case, found historical precedent, and forged a strategy that gave them genuine hope. Yet, even as they celebrated this personal milestone, reality loomed. Their legal team had advised the next critical step, making a public statement before the Dragomirs could control the narrative. Lawson needed to introduce Sheila as both Alexandra and his fiancée at a press conference upon their return. Their private battle would become public knowledge. Their story would belong to headlines and social media discussions. Everything they had built in Chicago, his company's reputation, her carefully constructed anonymity, their quiet relationship, would transform under the spotlight of international attention. But going public meant risking everything they'd built. Would you have fought this ancient contract or fled to start a new life elsewhere? Comment below with what you would have done in Sheila's position. Would you have risked exposure to fight for your family or protected your child through continued anonymity? Your responses help me understand what resonates with you in these stories of courage and difficult choices. Chicago in spring brought renewal, trees budding along Michigan Avenue, tulips brightening, Millennium Park and Lake Michigan softening from winter's harsh gray to gentle blue. But inside Bryson Aerospace's corporate headquarters, tension filled the air like static before a storm. Sheila stood before a full-length mirror in Lawson's executive bathroom, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. 3 months had passed since their Geneva strategy sessions. Her pregnancy now showed prominently beneath the tailored navy dress selected for today's press conference. On her right hand, the signet ring gleamed, no longer hidden but displayed purposefully. On her left, Lawson's engagement ring caught the light, a constant reminder of what they fought for. "Are you ready?" Lawson appeared in the doorway, handsome in a charcoal suit that matched his serious expression. "No," she admitted, smoothing her dress nervously. "But I'll never be truly ready for this." He crossed to stand beside her, their reflections forming a portrait of determination. "Our legal team has filed all the necessary motions. The International Court agreed to hear our case next month. Today, we control the narrative before the Dragomirs can spin their version." Sheila nodded, drawing strength from his confidence. Their Geneva efforts had yielded results, preliminary injunctions preventing any custody claims until the case concluded. Legal, recognition of her dual identity, and most importantly, jurisdiction established in international rather than Vesperian courts. "What if people hate me?" she whispered, voicing her deepest fear. The princess who abandoned her duties, who lied about her identity for years. Lawson turned her gently to face him. "They might. Some will criticize, others will judge. But many will understand, especially women who've faced controlling relationships. Your story isn't just about royal duty, it's about the right to choose your own life." A knock at the door signaled their communications director. "5 minutes, Mr. Bryant." Sheila took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders in a posture that would have made Patricia proud. "Let's rewrite history." The press conference room buzzed with journalists from every major network. What had been announced as a corporate update had attracted unusual attention. Rumors had circulated about Lawson Bryant's mysterious fiancée and their sudden trip to Switzerland. Cameras flashed as Lawson approached the podium, standing tall before the Bryson Aerospace logo. Sheila remained just off stage, heart pounding as she listened to his opening remarks about innovation and corporate responsibility. Then his tone shifted. "Today, however, I've invited you here for a more personal announcement." Lawson's voice carried clearly through the room. "Many of you have speculated about my recent absence and private life. Rather than allow rumors to circulate, I wish to introduce someone very important to me and share a truth that deserves to be told on our terms." He extended his hand toward the wings. Sheila stepped forward, chin lifted, eyes clear. Camera shutters clicked frantically as she took her place beside him. "This is Alexandra Allerton, known to many of you as Sheila. Bryson Aerospace's Director of Guest Services." Lawson's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing in silent support. "She is my fiancée and the mother of our expected child, but there is more to her story, one she has carried alone for too long." Murmurs rippled through the assembled press as Lawson continued. "Before she came to America, Alexandra was known by another name, Princess Alexandra. Dragomir of Vesperia, heir to one of Europe's oldest royal houses." Gasps punctuated his words. 7 years ago, she fled an arranged marriage to Prince Victor Dragomir. After discovering his controlling nature and questionable intentions, Sheila stepped forward, finding her voice with surprising steadiness. "I left behind wealth, position, and family to seek freedom and build a life based on choice rather than obligation. I changed my name not to deceive, but to protect myself from those who would force me back into a life I did not choose." A reporter shouted, "Are you saying you're actually royalty? Can you prove this claim?" Sheila raised her right hand, displaying the signet ring. "This ring bears the combined crests of the Allerton and Dragomir houses, created specifically for our engagement. My identity can be verified through diplomatic channels, though I've renounced all royal titles and privileges." Another voice called out, "Why reveal this now, after 7 years of secrecy?" Lawson answered, his tone measured but firm, "Because the Dragomir family has invoked an archaic clause in the engagement contract, attempting to claim legal rights to our unborn child. We refuse to allow medieval laws to determine our family's future." The room erupted with questions, cameras flashing incessantly. Through it all, Sheila maintained her composure, answering questions about her escape, her new life in America, and the legal battle ahead. "I am not ashamed of my heritage," she stated clearly when asked about her deception, "but I am proud of the life I've built through my own efforts, not birthright. I stand before you as both Alexandra and Sheila, embracing my past while claiming my future." When the barrage of questions finally ended, Lawson concluded with quiet authority, "We ask for privacy as we prepare for both our legal case and the birth of our child. Alexandra has shown tremendous courage throughout her life. I can only hope to match her bravery as we face these challenges together." The media explosion that followed was predictable, yet overwhelming. Headlines blared across continents. Runaway princess found in Chicago, CEOs. Pregnant fiancé reveals royal secret. Medieval law threatens modern family. For days, reporters camped outside their buildings. Social media overflowed with opinions, some condemning Sheila for abandoning royal duty, others celebrating her escape from an arranged marriage many questioning the validity of ancient contracts in modern society. The Dragomirs released a formal statement expressing profound relief at locating our beloved Princess Alexandra and deep concern for her well-being under obvious American influence. They announced intentions to restore her rightful place and protect the royal bloodline as law demands. But something unexpected emerged alongside the predictable outrage. Women began sharing stories of their own escapes from controlling relationships. Hashtags trended, #IStandWithAlexandra and #HerChoiceHerChild. Legal experts debated the case on television, with many questioning the enforceability of medieval contracts against modern parental rights. Inside their penthouse, shielded from the media circus, Sheila and Lawson monitored developments with their legal team. Each supportive comment strengthened her resolve. Each shared story reminded her that her battle transcended royal politics. It represented everyone's right to self-determination. 3 weeks after the press conference, the Vesperian royal family unexpectedly withdrew their claim. A terse diplomatic note cited changing circumstances and international considerations for their decision. Their lawyers were suspicious. Too easy, Elise warned via video call. They may be regrouping for a different approach. But days passed, then weeks, with no further legal action. Intelligence sources eventually revealed the likely truth: intense international pressure, combined with unfavorable public opinion, had forced the Dragomirs to retreat. Countries that might have supported them diplomatically now distanced themselves, unwilling to appear supportive of antiquated practices that restricted women's rights. Victory arrived not with a dramatic courtroom verdict, but through the steady pressure of public scrutiny and diplomatic reality. Summer sunshine warmed the shores of Lake Michigan as Sheila and Lawson exchanged vows in a small ceremony attended only by close friends and family. No royal representatives attended, no diplomatic observers monitored proceedings. Just genuine connection between people who had chosen to witness this union. Sheila wore a simple ivory gown that flowed gently over her 7-month pregnancy, her hair adorned with wildflowers rather than tiaras. Lawson waited for her beneath an arch of white roses, his eyes never leaving hers as she approached. On her own, walking herself toward her chosen future rather than being given away. Marcus stood proudly beside his father, serving as ring-bearer with solemn importance. When asked during the ceremony who supports this union, he piped up confidently alongside the adult guests. "I do." Laughter rippled through the gathering, breaking formal tension and infusing the moment with genuine joy. Their vows, written together during quiet evenings, acknowledged both their extraordinary journey and simple human promises. "I choose you," Lawson declared, "not for title or status, but for the courage in your heart and the strength in your spirit." "I choose you," Sheila responded, "not as escape or shelter, but as partner and equal in all life brings." When they exchanged rings, Sheila had removed the signet band from her right hand. That royal symbol remained in her purse, acknowledged but no longer worn. Only Lawson's platinum band with its inscription "My Heart, My Home" adorned her fingers now. As sunset painted the lake in amber and rose, they were pronounced husband and wife, not princess, and commoner, not heiress and CEO, just two people who had fought for their right to love freely. Autumn leaves danced past the nursery window as Sheila rocked her newborn daughter, singing softly in the language of her homeland. The room, painted in gentle greens rather than princess pink, featured constellations across. The ceiling and bookshelves filled with stories of adventurous women throughout history. Lawson appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame to watch his wife and daughter with unguarded adoration. "And she has your eyes," he observed quietly, "and possibly your stubborn chin." Sheila smiled, tracing a finger along the baby's perfect cheek. "Heaven help us all if she inherits both our determination." On the nursery shelf, displayed among stuffed animals and baby keepsakes, sat the signet ring. Now, encased in clear acrylic and labeled with a small plaque, "The past we honor but do not repeat." Beside it stood a framed copy of their daughter's birth certificate, naming her Lily, Patricia Bryant, honoring the governess who had helped Sheila find courage years ago. "Any regrets?" Lawson asked, joining them in the rocking chair's gentle motion. Sheila considered the question seriously. I regret the pain my disappearance caused my parents. I regret years spent looking over my shoulder instead of forward. She kissed Lily's forehead. But I will never regret the choices that brought me here. The baby yawned, tiny fingers curling around her mother's thumb with surprising strength. No royal blood pressure would determine this child's path. No ancient contract would limit her horizons. She would grow guided by love rather than obligation, free to become whoever she chose. Patricia sent a letter, Lawson mentioned, retrieving an envelope from his pocket. Postmarked from northern Italy. Sheila accepted it with surprise. After the media revelation, she had reached out to her former governess. Through discreet channels, uncertain if contact remained possible. The letter contained just 3 lines in Patricia's elegant handwriting. The caged bird not only sings, she soars when truly free. Your parents miss you, but understand at last. You chose wisely, my brave girl. Tears blurred Sheila's vision as worlds finally reconciled, not through grand diplomatic gestures or legal battles, but through simple human understanding. Outside their window, Chicago stretched vibrant and alive, the city that had given her anonymity when she needed protection and community, when she found courage to stand revealed. She was neither fully Alexandra nor entirely Sheila anymore, but something new forged through conscious choice. We rewrote the ending, she whispered to her daughter, and your story begins without chains. In her arms, the future slept peacefully, unburdened by gilded cages or ancient demands, just as it should be, just as she had fought for it to be. The princess had escaped, the woman had flourished, and the mother now protected not through running, but through standing firm. Some fairy tales end with rescue. Theirs had begun with self-liberation, and continued with the courage to choose love over fear, truth over hiding, and family created through heart rather than decree. Dear friends, as the last page of Alexandra and Lawson's story turns, I find myself reflecting on the journey we've shared together. From the shadowed corridors of St. Olav's Hall to the sunlit nursery where baby Lily sleeps peacefully, we've witnessed a transformation more profound than any fairy tale. Think about the cage Alexandra fled at 18, golden, privileged, yet still a cage. The weight of that signet ring, heavy with centuries of tradition and expectation. The contract that reduced her to a royal vessel rather than a human heart with dreams and choices. She ran not from responsibility, but toward the freedom to be fully herself. In a world where so many forces push us to conform, to accept the paths others have designed for us, their refusal burns bright as inspiration. They remind us that contracts, traditions, and expectations hold power only when we surrender our right to question them. Notice how the signet ring transformed throughout our story, from symbol of captivity to evidence of identity to historical artifact displayed in a nursery, just as Alexandra reshaped her own narrative from princess to survivor. To fighter to mother, she redefined what her royal heritage meant, not abandoning her past, but refusing to be imprisoned by it. Their story reminds us that sometimes the bravest act isn't running away, but standing firmly in your truth. That real love doesn't chain us to the past, but fights alongside us for the future. That the most meaningful heritage we can offer our children isn't titles or bloodlines, but the courage to define their own paths. Isn't that what we all seek? The freedom to honor our origins while charting our own course. The courage to face our fears rather than run from them. The love that stands beside us when storms gather. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and ring that notification bell. Your support allows me to continue bringing you these tales of courage, love, and transformation. Every subscription reminds me why these stories matter. Until our next story, remember, the most beautiful endings aren't written in contracts or traditions, but in the choices we make when love calls us to be brave.